Alright, so my talk is Intro to OpenBSD. It's a basic overview of the OpenBSD operating system. So OpenBSD's mission is it's a security research operating system. Its focus is to develop and implement new security measures that are hopefully adopted by the industry at large. It focuses on code correctness, which means the code functions as specified. They do lots of code audits to make sure everything works as expected. They also focus on simplicity. So they have a tendency to rip out a lot of code just so it's less to maintain. And the idea is the less code there is, the fewer bugs there are. It's also highly portable. It compiles on 13 different ISAs, and they have real hardware for all of this. So if you're around it, they'll do around when they're doing went a blank. Whenever they're doing fundraising, a lot of the times they'll try to be raising money to support the hardware that they have, simply because they make sure everything compiles on the ISA natively. And the idea behind that is that you can find bugs based on how different ISAs work. So quick history. It's part of the BSD family of operating systems. It was forked by Theodor Rant from NetBSD 1.0 after a disagreement. They don't really tell exactly what the disagreement was about, but he was asked to resign, so he created OpenBSD. Initial release was in July 1996 as OpenBSD 1.2. In July 2007, there was a user survey by the BSD Certification Institute, and 32.8% of respondents indicated that they were OpenBSD users. That's second only behind FreeBSD. And the latest release is OpenBSD 6.3. It was on April 15th, 2018. They have a 6-month release cadence, so everything moves pretty quickly. So a couple of features that they've done. Stir-L copy. It's a stir copy variant that truncates the results to fit into destination buffer. Same thing goes for stir-L cat. It's a stir cat, except it truncates results to make sure you don't have buffer overflows or whatnot. And something else that they've started is relinking the kernel at boot time. So every time you boot a system, it relinks the kernel, so you get basically a new kernel. That's kind of interesting. A lot of kernels talk about ASLR and that sort of thing, but these guys take it to like a whole different level. And this is a slide that was partially completed. So one of the cooler things that they've added recently is a pledge. It's like mandatory access control, like a SE Linux or Capsation if you're familiar with FreeBSD. Except the idea is that instead of having the system manage everything and sysadmins try to write rules to figure out what the software is doing, the software writers will actually drop privileges, folder privileges as they go. It says this software has access to temp, and it says I'm going to write to let's say user local application. Those are two places it's going to write. So it starts itself up. It reads the configs and it says, okay, I don't need user local application anymore, so it drops those and only has access to temp. The idea being that the application developers know better than the sysadmins do. So they've done quite a bit of work. I believe that I think last time I heard they had like 500 different little programs in the base packages have been ported to pledge, and I believe most of the operating system itself has been pledged as well. But they have a whole list of different things that they've worked on. If you want to know more, go to openbsd.org/innovations.html. So it's not just an operating system; it's its entire ecosystem. One of the most popular and well-known projects that has come out of OpenSSH is OpenSSH. And sorry about that; I was trying to mess with my speaker notes. Is OpenSSH. Everyone uses it. It's everywhere. If you're working with Unix or Linux boxes, use OpenSSH. A couple other things that have come out. It's OpenSMTPD. It's a kind of simplistic SMTP daemon. It's in reaction to the complexity of SendMail and postfix. It's got a very simplistic configuration system and very minimal amount of features. It's not necessarily meant as a replacement for those big systems, but just something small. And then OpenBGP. It's a BGP daemon, so you can broadcast a Border Gateway Protocol announcements to different routers and whatnot. It's a handy little feature. OpenBSD has a big presence in the networking community, and so that's kind of why you see things like OpenBGP show up. A couple other things. RelayD, that's their basically load balancer and relay program. They have HTTPD, which is a very cut down version of web server. And once again, I have like a half a thought here in the middle of that slide. And then they have something new is a VMM. It's their homegrown hypervisor. For a long time, a lot of people were asking them to support Xen and KVM, but they had a lot of issues with how things were working, and they felt that there were a lot of security holes there. So they've gone through and created their own little virtual machine manager. All right, so that's kind of it's all the slides. So I'm going to fire up a VM and install OpenBSD. It's has really modest requirements. You can get by with one proc, 128 megs of RAM. That's actually kind of on the high end for it. I believe you can get away with about 64, but just for convenience's sake, I'm going to do 128. And you can get by with about 4 gigs of disk space. I'm probably going to do 8 just because to make things easy. And interestingly, OpenBSD works better on low-end hardware than it does the high-end stuff. They just don't spend a whole lot of time doing NUMA and working with all the hundreds of cores like FreeBSD and Linux does.
You're in luck. I brought my P2 with me.
Oh, did you? All right, so let's see. I'm going to try to find. Oh yeah, here we go. All right, so when you go to the OpenBSD site, you'll have go to downloads. There'll be a number of options. The main one you want to work with is the install. I actually can't see that here. Is the install ISO. This has all the packages in it, the base system, and it's the most full featured. You don't need network access to get it up and running. Interestingly, if you're going to install something with UEFI and USB, you need the install.fs that has all the UEFI stuff in it, and you can boot off a USB stick.
So you use that in addition, or okay, so you use that one instead of the .iso, correct?
Right. Like a normal, like a Linux, you can just dump the ISO to a USB drive,
Yeah.
and you can boot off of it, and it'll install on UEFI and everything. Well, with the OpenBSD, you can dump the ISO, and you can install it, but it doesn't have everything needed to boot off a UEFI.
Yeah, for the secure boot and everything else.
Right. Well, they don't use secure boot, but
Yeah.
they have their boot files and everything. Haven't dug into exactly why, but
Okay.
that's an interesting bit of knowledge that you learn after spending like hours wondering why a stupid thing won't boot. All right, so I kind of look back and forth. Everything is like about this big over here. All right, so that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and drop that down. So you're going to change that to 8. I'm going to check the customization just because
Is this a VirtualBox that you're using?
this is KVM.
Oh, okay, KVM. All right.
Yeah, and if you want to try this at home, OpenBSD and KVM do have kind of a little bit of a little feud going on, but there's like a bug between them that after about 24 hours, the system will lock up. It has to do with interrupt timers. I just need to check and make sure we're not using the VirtIO drivers.
Are you saying that's fixable by changing the setting, or you're saying it's just the bug you live with in a VM?
Well, you can set some kernel parameters to get around it, but it turns off some timers. I don't remember exactly, and I didn't want to do that on my laptop.
No.
So, like if I was doing this if I was running this hardcore, I would. But the timers are actually pretty helpful. All right, let's start this up and see. All right. Yeah, it's hard to see, isn't it? Okay, let's see. All right, so actually let me see if I can change the.
Or even just have a magnifier and
Well, it does. I just don't know where it is. All right.
what if you just change the resolution to the second screen?
Yeah, tried that. Didn't work out very well.
Like it?
Yeah.
Huh.
Let me see if I can change the DPI. Nope. All right. Okay, there we go. That's readable. All right, so I have a couple options here. We have install, upgrade, auto install, and shell. So the upgrade process of OpenBSD is basically the same thing as the install. You boot from, I believe you boot from the kernel, and then it goes back into the install prompt, the install program, and then it sets everything back up for you. So, but this is brand new, so we're going to do install. And then we're going to choose our keyboard layout. It's going to go with default, because I believe the default is US. And call this OpenBSD demo. And we're going to use the RE0. Going to do DHCP. This is just going to be a natted interface. Yeah, I don't have IPv6 set up on this, so we're just going to skip that. So it's going to ask us again if we have any more network interfaces we want to configure. We don't, so we're just going to say done. DNS domain. We don't really have one, so Go ahead and continue. Then ask for the root account. All right, just ask us a couple questions about what kind of software we're going to be running. We do want SSHD. We don't really want the X Windows system, so we're going to say no to that. No, we do not want to pipe the console to the serial port right now. And we can ask us if we want to set up a user. If we want to have a local user, this is where we'd set it up. But we're just going to go skip this since it's just a demo. Allow root SSH login. Now, I'm on the console, so I'm going to say no. Time zone. It picks up that we're in America and Chicago, so that works. Then SD0. So this is kind of the part that tripped me up for the most part whenever I started doing this. Because generally you want to use GPT. It's a lot more robust than MBR. But it gets kind of wonky. So just stick with a whole disk MBR for.
So is this VM set to be the BIOS mode for the VM? Is that UEFI or is it running legacy?
So yes, this VM is set to use the BIOS. By default, KVM will use the BIOS. You can change it to use UEFI.
Okay.
But
That's probably why GPT is a little funky.
well, so I've used GPT with just the regular BIOS before, in like mainly Linux, and it works fine.
Okay.
It just happens to be that OpenBSD is a little funky about it. So there may be a very valid reason, something I'm not doing correctly, but
Yeah.
from my experience, whole MBR seems to work pretty well.
Okay. Yeah. I found that like with GPT or when you're using UEFI, GPT is usually preferred.
Well, in general, GPT should be preferred simply because it staggers, if I remember, the boot blocks every so often.
Okay.
That way, it's more resistant to corruption and crashes.
Yeah.
All right, so this is our basic setup. So we're just gonna use the auto layout. You can do a lot of different customization in this. But the thing to remember is that OpenBSD has a lot of different mount options, and it has different things mounted with specific mount options to increase the security. Like they have the WX bit set, and that means if something is mounted with WX, only I believe nothing can be executed from it if I remember correctly. So it's just basically a storage for storage only. And then you have stuff like bin and sbin and user local bin, those two mounted with without the WX bit. That way you can launch programs and that sort of thing from it. So so you can kind of do the same thing with Linux, but most people don't. They just run with the defaults. But that's something to consider whenever you're messing around with the mount points in OpenBSD. Most of the time, it's pretty solid. So we're just gonna go ahead with the auto. All right, it's gonna ask us. At this point, it's created all of our mount points and all of our partitions. So we're going to access the sets. And you can also do this over the network, but simply because it's netted, I'm not sure networking is going to work. I'm just using the CD. So we're going to say the path is 6.3/AMD64. And now it's asking us which packages we'd like to install. We definitely need the BSD and BSD.RD, the base, the comp 6.3. The thing we don't need is the X server. There's some things that do require some of the X parts. That's why they're broken down their own little thing. But we can turn off the X server since we're not going to be using it. And to do that, all we have to do is set a minus and go x server, I believe. Yes, x serve 663. No, wait. All right, one more time. And see if I can spell it correctly. So let's see.
You can use an asterisk to based on the example.
Yeah, let's see.
X server asterisk.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, I guess I wanted the .tgz. I think. Yeah, you guys were right. All right. We can you can remove more stuff if you want, but that seems to be pretty well. Work pretty well. Just we're gonna go ahead and ignore that for the moment. We'll give it a minute while it installs. You guys have any questions up to this point or anything?
Have you tried out their hypervisor yet?
I have not tried out their hypervisor just yet.
Okay.
That's gonna be probably gonna be another talk a little bit down the road.
Sure.
I'm planning on doing some stuff like building a firewall with this and setting up different things. I think
Yeah. So they're using PF then?
yes,
Okay.
I will be using PF, and one of the cooler things that they have is CARP
Yep.
availability, so you can do failover between your stuff.
Yep.
Interesting bit of trivia with this. You can't run it on the same network as Cisco VRRP, I believe.
Yeah.
Because
HSRP.
HSRP or two?
They're both. They're very similar.
Okay.
So it's just like hot standby routing protocol.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with HS.
So that's basically having redundant gateways
Uh huh.
and then a virtual IP that basically you use as the gateway, but two devices are listening to that IP. So CARP can work very similar to that, but they're not compatible because Cisco is being Cisco and they didn't open source their proprietary protocol. So they had to make up, or BSD had to make their own, and that's where CARP came from.
Yes, that's exactly where CARP came from. They got mad at Cisco and did their own thing.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm looking actually to do that at home because I have, I'm running pfSense,
Mm-hmm.
which I think that's FreeBSD, and so I'm wanting to do high availability with that because I hate having to like update my host and then my internet goes down because the Wi-Fi's bad, so I gotta get two of them running, so I don't have any internet downtime.
Right? Can't
The things we do for that, huh?
exactly. You can't have internet downtime. All right. So at this point, we're ready to reboot, and if everything went correctly, should come back up. And if I have internet, we'll mess around with the installing packages.
I think with your double NAT you should be okay.
Yeah. It's just I'm a Wi-Fi, and the Wi-Fi drivers are kind of wonky with the KVM.
Yeah. KV.
Yeah.
Is it a Broadcom or a Realtek?
It's an Intel NIC.
Oh, it's an Intel? Okay.
Yeah, but
It's just wonky for whatever reason.
yeah, it's the Wi-Fi drivers. Like you can't bridge anything with the Wi-Fi driver.
Huh.
Yeah, it's just something that they've never. It's not a feature that they've added.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very annoying. All right, so let's do login root. All right, it's working. All right, so it's kind of useless without software. So let's do package. I think package add vim. All right. Actually, let me see if I have a internet. So let's see. I have config. Let's see. Okay, yeah. Looks like I have an internet.
146
Yeah.
your IP.
Curl here. Nope. Mm. And I do. So I just don't know how to.
So this is exactly where I stopped trying OpenBSD because you had to set like an environment variable to point to an FTP server to get package add to work, right?
I think you're correct at one point. Although I think now they may do it automatically.
And I could not decipher their manual of like what, so I just gave up and installed Linux. But I think that you're missing that magic environment variable that says where the FTP server is.
I think you may be right. Let me.
This is
See, I wonder if you did, because you did like basically the full ISO download. I wonder if you did like the net install, if it actually would add that in for you.
I think you're right. I think it does do that.
So then you don't have to worry about the complicated crap.
install YouTube.
But yeah, sometimes their stuff can be a little bit convoluted. It's a lot of information all at once. All right, let's see. What's that?
That right below where you were just at, it's got the add dash V and then they're pointing to a specific package on FTP.
Okay. Well,
There's a way to just have the package name, but you have to do something.
yeah. Yeah, there's a specific file that needs to be edited, and I do not remember what it is off the top of my head.
Definitely get all your packages.
Interesting. That brings up mentioning wget brings up an interesting another bit of trivia. Like if you FTP is basically their version of wget. So if you're trying to get something, if you're trying to pull something down, you would use FTP rather than wget. And it doesn't just do FTP; it does a lot of different protocols.
I got something.
Oh.
Can you edit Etsy install URL?
Yes, I
Oh,
can.
you can't edit it because you have buy? Okay.
Yeah.
Etsy, it's in Etsy.
Let's see. I think I'm there. There we
Oh,
go.
you're in Etsy. Okay, cool. And it's install URL, all one word.
All right.
Oh crap! It's meant to be. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Uh,
apparently that's.
Okay, now you have to FTP the file.
Well, that wasn't helpful. It says use that file, but it doesn't tell you how. Or you can set package underscore path as an environment variable.
Well, there was, on one of the Google results you had, there was, in the description, it had an environment variable called trusted package path.
Yeah, that's the second option. I can tell you the URL if you want to type it in.
Alright, looks like FreeBSD.
At the end.
Oh, you found it. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've done this before. I just can't remember what the file is.
Why don't they just make it automatic?
Yeah. Well.
It's to scare off the
Yeah.
weaklings.
The weak ones.
They only want hardcore neckbeards.
That's what they've done.
All right.
I found it kind of ironic that they split from NetBSD from a disagreement, and now they're more popular than NetBSD.
Yeah. NetBSD is really hard to set up. I've tried it.
Harder than this? What?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
How hard do we want to make it? Snap your eyes out hard, or just pull your hair out?
All right. So we're gonna after we have edited Etsy install URL, we're going to do package underscore add vim.
Oh,
and it's going to give us a whole bunch of options.
So
Sweet.
where did you find that URL that you? Sorry, I wasn't looking at this.
Oh, no worries. It's part of the. Where'd my mouse go? All right, here we go. It's yeah, it's just one of the.
You have to specify the version.
No, it'll take care of that.
Okay, so it's not that hard.
No, it's not.
Ryan, you need to make a YouTube video because then a million people will watch it and you can become rich on YouTube.
Yeah, like a 20-second video.
Because if we had trouble reading the documentation, I guarantee that's that way for probably a lot of people.
A million? I was gonna say a million people aren't trying to install it.
Maybe after 10 years they might.
All right, so we've got a couple options. We're just gonna go ahead and go with one.
Over and over again.
Yeah, looks incentive if something goes wrong. Grab it.
Do you know anyone who, or have you read about anyone actually using it as a desktop for
There-
their laptop?
There are several people every once in a while. I've tried it a little bit. Most of the time, I just want to interact with it via SSH. So, yeah. But no, it can work. If you do a full install, it'll boot up to a X Windows environment, where you can log in. I think,
Can you pretty much use any window manager at that point, or
yeah, you pretty much can.
whichever? Do they have any BSD specific ones?
They do not have any BSD specific Windows managers for the most part. FreeBSD has Lumina, but or well, I guess what used to be TrueOS, which is now Trident, has Lumina, but it hasn't been ported to really anything else.
Okay.
I believe they use IWM as a default. I wouldn't quote me on that one,
Okay.
but it's really primitive. If you want to see what it was like, installing Linux back in 1998, there's pretty good analog to it.
Does this have native ZFS support?
It does not have native ZFS support,
Okay.
simply because once again the developers disagree with how it does some things,
Okay.
so
Where
it
did
does not.
CFS come from? I thought it was from this.
I think it was Solaris.
Oh, Solaris.
It was Solaris, and
Are
then
you gonna do a talk on Solaris?
I've used
I
it
c-
for Solaris a little bit.
Have you?
It's-
I could do a talk on like a Luminos or something like that.
Have you used Open Indiana yet?
A long time ago.
Okay.
I have not used Open Indiana in years.
What about Haiku?
Haiku? Oh,
Tried that yet?
every so often I keep for Haiku. So, back in the day, I really loved BIOS.
Yeah, I liked it too.
Yeah. Yeah, and every so often I boot up
Big,
Haiku.
ugly yellow title bars.
Yes, it was awesome. Yeah. Had the one demo that you could really do with a
I'm
ball.
not sure Vim is worth it. It's taking like 20 minutes.
Yeah, I just have to.
Is it the Wi-Fi or do you think that?
This is installing like GTK and stuff. I think you need to grab.
Maybe you did like a GUI version or something.
Yeah, I think I did hit the wrong one because I was trying to just get the.
Okay, it only has 128 megs of RAM.
I do want you to show that install URL file again. I'm gonna take a picture of it.
Okay.
At some point, you could wait. I mean, I guess we could wait a few hours for this.
I'll go ahead and kill this thing. And
Quadruplet's RAM. It's not like
all right, so we need to go to.
lacking.
Oh, that file that you had to edit and what you put in it.
So go to Etsy, and then it's install URL.
Yeah, I want to see it. I want to see the insides of it.
Okay.
There we go. Yes. Oh, we have to wait to see this. Okay, thank you. You didn't have to put like the percent version, just magically figure it out. Cool.
Yes. Yes, it'll populate the version, everything on top of that.
Sweet.
But yes, it runs a KSH shell, and their OpenBSD's a little variant of it. And it's kind of cool. It's very analogous to Bash. So it has a lot of Bashisms, or if you're used to Bash, you'll be used to it. So you guys have any other questions or anything I can kind of demonstrate?
Does it have the FTP getter already on, like base install?
Yes, the FTP program is part of the base.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah. Do you know what the different? Well, I guess I could Google it. What those different packages were, or sets? I guess they're called sets.
I believe it's a Vim built with different options like.
No, I'm sorry. Back when you were installing the OS, there was
Oh.
base and there was base dot something something.
RDE.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, the base packages.
Yeah.
Like
So-
what ones are absolutely necessary?
Absolutely necessary. You need definitely need the BSD and BSD.RD because those two are that's the kernel.
Okay.
And then I believe you need base to get going. But there's you can remove most of the X stuff. You just have to be careful about which packages you install because some things like GraphIS or I think it's Graphics Magic do require like some of the X fonts and things of that nature. But yeah, I think there's actually only about 3 or 4 that you really need. But yeah, they recommend like installing everything until you really know what it is that what the sets that you need.
So what distro are you running on your laptop?
This is Fedora. I think it's 27, mainly because I haven't got around to upgrading it just yet. I thought about that like yesterday, but then I kind of felt that was tempting fate a little too much.
And then you're right before demo.
Yeah, yeah.
Always do it right before demo.
Yes.
Your desktop environment?
It's a GNOME 3, GNOME 3.
Okay.
Uh,
It's got everything hidden.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's also my second screen.
Oh, because it's extended. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I can.
Do you use it daily, or is it kind of fun, or Fedora?
Pretty much use it daily. I used to before
Work laptop?
this one. No, this is my personal one.
Okay.
Yeah, my work laptop is macOS. Like before I switched to the current company, I did have a Fedora desktop that I used every day. But yeah, I like Fedora. It runs really well. Yeah. Anything else you guys like to know, or? All right, go ahead.
So what have you done with your OpenBSD box? Or do you have any that you run regularly or not really, or?
I really don't, simply because of the KVM bug.
Okay, yeah. I'd be pissed off too.
Yeah, when your box stops being responsive after about 24 hours, it gets kind of annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when I was really working with it, I was trying to set up the HTTPD and do some CCGI programming with it. They have here actually let me pull up what I was trying to work with. So yeah, so I was playing around with this. This is what I was trying to play with.
I saw that on packages.
Yeah, yeah. C and CGI is kind of fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but the project I was working on kind of stalled out, and I got busy with other things. So
That sounds like fun.
yeah,
What about dual booting? Recommended, not recommended?
I haven't tried it.
Yeah.
I just spin up a VM now, so everything seems to work pretty well for that.
I have my personal laptop. It's running Debian, and I'm pretty happy with it. But I want to try BSD, but I don't know. VM
Yeah.
It's not real.
Right.
Make it full screen, you can't tell.
Hmm.
The only thing is just, I guess,
Use VirtualBox.
USB would be tough.
With yeah, Cavium's not bad with USB. You can
Yeah.
pass stuff through. It's not as nice as VirtualBox, but
Yeah, and I'm not a big fan of VirtualBox either.
yeah.
But I don't.
Just because it's Oracle or like specific?
It's very limited, I
Yeah.
feel. So I'm used to using ESX, but I can't carry my server around. So
Did you say ESX?
ESX, yeah, so
What's that?
VMware.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You can do. What about Kimu?
It it's this is what Chemo is what KVM is based off of.
Okay.
KVM is an x86 accelerator that uses Camo. It plugs
Okay.
into it.
So it's using Kimu as the backend. Okay.
Right, right. Because normally Camo is an entire emulator, so you can set up different architectures on x86.
Okay.
They don't run very fast, but you can do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I use that a lot with like GNS3 and stuff. It's like network simulation. So.
Yeah.
Now you could Zen would be another option, right?
What Zen?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think
That's not KVM,
correct. Zen is its own thing.
right? Isn't that what Proxmox uses, or does it use KVM?
It uses KVM.
Okay, that's okay.
What is Prox?
Proxmox is another hypervisor server. So
Yeah, it's like has a nice GUI on top of KVM and LXC. It's kind of cool.
you manage it all through the web page, pretty much.
I'm learning so many things. That's awesome. Thanks for doing this. That was cool.
You're welcome.